Are you staring at your garlic harvest again and letting out a deep, disappointed sigh? The bulbs are tiny, the cloves are practically seeds, and you poured your heart and soul into growing them. You did everything your neighbours suggested and followed every piece of advice you found online. Or did you? Hey there, fellow gardeners. Today, we're going to launch a full-scale investigation and uncover the top 20 reasons, some of them completely non-obvious, why your garlic refuses to grow big and juicy. I guarantee at least 5 of these reasons will genuinely surprise you, and you'll realise exactly where you made that critical, fateful mistake. Ready to solve the mystery of small garlic once and for all? Let's dive in. Before we get into the nitty-gritty details, let's lay some groundwork. All garlic falls into 2 major categories: hardneck and softneck. Hardneck is planted in the fall. It's generally larger and more robust. It grows a central stem, or scape, and the cloves are arranged in a single ring around that central axis. Softneck is planted in the spring. It stores longer, but the bulbs are typically smaller, and the cloves are arranged haphazardly, often in a spiral pattern. Why is this distinction so crucial? Because they have drastically different needs. If you plant softneck garlic in the fall, you probably won't get any germination at all. And if you plant hardneck garlic in the spring, you won't get a full bulb. You'll likely just get a small, single clove round, often called a solo bulb. Understanding this simple difference is the absolute 0 step, the most fundamental step towards success. Many novice gardeners don't even consider this when buying planting stock at the market. But this is the foundation of foundations. Without it, all your other hard work might just go to waste. So, the first, and arguably the most common mistake, is using poor quality planting stock. You know the old saying, you reap what you sow. When it comes to garlic, that principle holds true 100%. Many gardeners, trying to save money, will select the smallest cloves from their harvest for planting. The logic is understandable. We'll eat the big ones and let the runts grow, but this approach is a dead end. Physically, a small, weak clove cannot produce a large, powerful head of garlic. It simply doesn't have the nutrient reserves needed for a strong start. Imagine trying to start a massive engine with a tiny battery. The result is completely predictable. Furthermore, those small cloves often indicate variety degeneration or hidden diseases. If you keep planting them year after year, you are essentially guaranteeing a cycle of negative selection. Rule number 1. For planting, select only the largest, healthiest, and most weighty cloves from the biggest bulbs you have. They must be free of spots, dents, or any signs of rot. This is your essential investment in next year's harvest. The second critical mistake is neglecting to properly prepare your seed material. Suppose you've selected perfect large cloves, but what if fungal spores like fusarium or rust are already lurking on the surface? Or perhaps a microscopic pest, such as the stem nematode, is already hiding inside? You won't see these threats with the naked eye. By planting an infected clove, you're not just condemning one single plant to failure, you're introducing disease to your entire garden bed. The disease will weaken the plant right from the start, sapping the energy that should have been dedicated to forming a robust garlic bulb. That's why pre-planting treatment isn't merely a recommendation, it's a mandatory prerequisite. The simplest and most reliable method is soaking. You can use a weak, pale pink solution of potassium permanganate for 20 to 30 minutes, or use specialized commercial fungicides such as Maxim or phytosporin, strictly following the package directions. This simple, half-hour procedure provides powerful protection and guarantees that your garlic will start its journey healthy and vigorous. The third critical mistake that could wipe out your entire crop is simply getting the planting time wrong. This is particularly crucial when dealing with winter garlic. You need to plant it in a narrow window where it has enough time to establish deep roots before the hard freezes set in, but not enough time to sprout above ground. If you plant too early, say in September, while the weather is still warm, the garlic will send up green shoots. When the inevitable hard frost hits, this tender growth will die back, severely weakening the bulb, and leaving it vulnerable to disease. Conversely, planting too late, right on the cusp of freezing temperatures, means the cloves won't have time to root at all. They will either freeze solid in the soil or simply rot when the spring thaw arrives. The golden rule for winter garlic planting is aiming for 3 to 4 weeks before the ground permanently freezes. In many temperate regions, this falls around the first half of October. You should always gauge this by soil temperature. Ideally, the ground should consistently be between 10 and 12 degrees Celsius. Spring garlic is much simpler. Plant it as early as you possibly can in the spring, right after the snow melts and the soil is workable. The sooner those cloves root, the longer the growing season they'll have. Let's move on to the fourth common mistake, choosing the wrong planting location. Garlic is a true sun lover. It absolutely cannot tolerate shade, or even partial shade. If you plant it under a tree, near a fence line, or on the north side of your home, the plant will strain to find light. It will waste all its energy growing foliage, the green leaves, instead of bulking up the actual head of garlic. In shady spots, the leaves will look weak, pale and thin. Consequently, the bulbs will turn out small, soft and poorly formed. Furthermore, shaded areas are often poorly ventilated, trapping moisture for longer periods. This creates the perfect breeding ground for fungal diseases. The ideal spot for your garlic patch needs to be the absolute sunniest, most open, and best ventilated location you have available. Another crucial point is the topography, drainage. Avoid low-lying areas or dips where water tends to collect and sit, especially during spring thaw or after heavy rains. Garlic hates having wet feet. When the roots are constantly waterlogged, they start to suffocate and rot. This guarantees stunted bulbs and a poor harvest. Always choose a level or slightly raised planting area. The fifth common mistake many gardeners overlook is neglecting proper crop rotation and planting after bad preceding crops. You shouldn't plant garlic in the exact same spot several years in a row. Furthermore, you must never plant it immediately after close relatives such as onions, leeks, or shallots. Why? Because they all share common pests and diseases. Pathogens and pest larvae build up in the soil, and when a related crop is planted, the pests and diseases are ready to strike immediately. Even if you treat your planting stock, the infection will still spread from the ground. As a result, your plants will get sick and fail to thrive. You shouldn't return garlic to the same plot for at least 3 to 4 years. The ideal predecessors for garlic are heavy feeders that received a lot of organic matter, such as cucumbers, zucchini, pumpkins, and cabbage. Legumes like peas and beans are also excellent choices, as they enrich the soil with nitrogen. Finally, effective green manures or cover crops such as mustard or phacelia are great options, as they actively help clean and revitalise the soil. The sixth major mistake is planting in poorly prepared soil. Garlic is actually a pretty demanding crop. It thrives in loose, fertile, well-aerated soil with a neutral pH. If your soil is heavy clay, the garlic roots will struggle to develop because they won't get enough air. The bulb will be cramped and won't be able to size up properly. Heavy soil also tends to retain excess moisture, which often leads to rot and decay. Conversely, if you have sandy soil, it will dry out too quickly and the nutrients will leach away with every watering. The garlic will suffer from a lack of both moisture and nutrients. That's why you need to prepare the planting bed well in advance, ideally 2 or 3 weeks before you plant a plant. For clay soil, incorporate sand, peat, and aged compost to help loosen the structure. For sandy soil, mix in clay, compost, and manure to improve water retention. Think of it as preparing a comfortable cradle for your future harvest. Mistake number 7 is closely tied to the previous one. It's highly acidic soil. Garlic absolutely cannot tolerate high acidity. In an acidic environment, most nutrients, even if they are abundant in the soil, are converted into forms plants can't access. Essentially, your garlic will be starving, even if you've applied plenty of fertilizer. It won't be able to absorb phosphorus, potassium, magnesium or calcium, all the essentials needed to form a large, healthy bulb. As a result, The leaves will yellow, growth will slow down significantly, and the bulbs will remain undersized. How do you check for acidity? You can pick up specialised pH test strips at your local garden centre. Alternatively, you can look at the weeds. If you see a vigorous growth of horsetail, plantain, or broadleaf dock, chances are your soil is acidic. This problem is easily solved through liming. In the fall, before tilling the ground, incorporate dolomite lime, garden lime, or wood ash. It's crucial to do this well in advance and not immediately before planting. Neutral soil is the key to ensuring that every nutrient you apply actually reaches the plant. Mistake number 8. Insufficient feeding. Garlic is an incredibly heavy feeder, a real nutrient hog. During its short growing season, it needs to develop both vigorous green foliage and a large underground bulb. That requires a substantial amount of nutrients. Planting it in poor, depleted soil is setting yourself up for failure from the start. A starved plant simply won't yield a good harvest. Therefore, preparing the bed involves not just improving the soil structure, but also adequately loading it with nutrients. When preparing the ground in the fall for winter garlic, you must incorporate well-rotted compost or aged manure, and never use fresh manure, along with phosphorus and potassium fertilizers, such as superphosphate and potassium sulfate. Phosphorus is crucial for developing a strong root system, while potassium is essential for the formation and quality of the bulb itself. Nitrogen fertilizers should not be applied in the fall. Those will be needed in the spring. If you fail to prepare the bed sufficiently in the fall, your garlic will struggle through the winter and start the spring already weakened. The 9th mistake that directly impacts the size of your garlic heads is improper planting depth. There are 2 extremes here, and both are detrimental. If you plant the clove too shallowly, it might freeze over winter, especially during cold snaps without protective snow cover. In spring, it can be pushed out of the soil by frost heave, causing it to dry out and die. Even if it survives, being too close to the surface prevents the head from developing normally. It will end up small and misshapen. On the flip side, planting too deep forces the garlic to waste an enormous amount of time and energy just to push its way to the surface. All that initial starter energy goes into growing a long sprout, leaving little left over for developing strong roots and the bulb itself. The resulting head will be small, and its maturity will be significantly delayed. There is a golden rule for planting winter garlic. The ideal depth should be 3 times the height of the individual clove. This usually ranges from 5 to 10 centimetres, depending on the clove size and the type of soil. In light or sandy soils, plant slightly deeper. In heavy clay soils, plant a bit shallower. The 10th common mistake is often described as gardener's greed. That is, planting too densely or severely overcrowding your crop. Trying to maximise the yield in a small area, many gardeners squeeze their garlic cloves almost right next to one another. While it may seem intuitive that more plants equal a bigger harvest, the opposite is actually true. Every single garlic plant needs adequate space, sufficient nutrients, and enough sunlight to develop properly. When you plant too densely, the plants engage in fierce competition for water, nutrients, and precious sunlight. They shade each other out. Their root systems become severely tangled, and in these stressful, subpar conditions, none of them can reach their full potential. Instead of a bed filled with large, robust bulbs, you will end up with what looks like a sparse picket fence of thin stems and tiny, underdeveloped bulbs. Optimal spacing is crucial for success. Aim for 4 to 6 inches, 10 to 15 centimetres, between the cloves within a row, and 8 to 10 inches, 20 to 25 centimetres, between the rows themselves. Give your garlic the room it needs to thrive, and it will generously reward you with impressive size and quality. Let's move on to plant care. The 11th common mistake is improper watering, specifically neglecting to provide enough moisture during the critical phase. A lot of people assume garlic is a drought-tolerant crop, so they water it only as an afterthought. This is a crucial misconception. Water is especially vital during the first half of the growing season, typically from May through June. This is when the plant is rapidly developing its foliage and starting the process of bulb formation. If the garlic doesn't get enough water during this stage, cell division stops, growth stalls, and even if you saturate the bed later, the bulb will never recover the lost time and will remain undersized. The soil surrounding your garlic must be kept consistently and moderately moist, down to the root depth. You should water deeply, but infrequently, aiming to soak the ground to a depth of about 6 to 8 inches. However, you must completely stop watering 3 to 4 weeks before you plan to harvest. This is critical for allowing the bulb to fully mature, develop its sharp flavour, and ensure good long-term storage. Excess moisture at this time will actually cause the bulbs to crack and rot. Mistake number 12 is the exact opposite problem: excess moisture, or overwatering. As we've discussed before, garlic absolutely hates standing water. If you water too frequently, or if your planting bed is in a low spot that collects rain, the roots start to suffocate because they can't get enough oxygen. This overly saturated soil creates anaerobic conditions, a perfect breeding ground for rot-causing bacteria and fungi. The roots begin to rot, the plant can no longer take up nutrients and water, the leaves turn yellow, and the plant slowly dies. Even if a bulb manages to form, it will be small, loose, spongy, and absolutely no good for long-term storage. Excess moisture is particularly dangerous when combined with cold weather. This is why proper drainage is crucial, and you should only water the garlic once the top layer of soil has fully dried out. It's better to water deeply and infrequently than lightly and often. Always check the soil moisture with your finger before you even reach for the hose. Remember this rule: drowning your garlic is far more damaging than letting it get a little dry. The 13th mistake, one that even veteran gardeners often fall victim to, is improper fertilization. Most frequently, this involves an overdose of nitrogen during the second half of the growing season. Nitrogen is absolutely crucial for garlic in the spring, right when growth starts, as it helps establish that robust green foliage. The healthier and larger the leaves are, the better the photosynthesis, which directly results in a bigger garlic head. Therefore, spring applications of urea, ammonium nitrate, or even a simple manure tea are entirely appropriate. However, starting around mid-June, when the bulb actively begins to form, you must eliminate nitrogen completely. If you continue supplying nitrogen fertilizer, the plant will keep pushing the greens. All its energy will go into the leaves, and it will effectively neglect the bulb itself. The head will remain small and won't store well. During this later stage of growth, garlic requires phosphorus and potassium. Phosphorus helps the plant accumulate nutrients, while potassium is what makes the garlic head dense, weighty, and significantly improves its shelf life. The ideal late-season feed is either a wood ash infusion or monopotassium phosphate. The 14th common mistake is simply losing the battle against weeds. Many gardeners seriously underestimate just how much damage weeds can inflict. It's not just an aesthetic issue. Weeds are direct, highly aggressive competitors to your garlic crop. They usually have a much more powerful root system, and they aggressively suck up the water and vital nutrients that were meant for your harvest. Garlic, especially when young, simply cannot compete with them. Furthermore, thick weed growth creates shade and drastically reduces air circulation around the plants. As we know, poor ventilation encourages the development of fungal diseases. Therefore, weeding is one of the most critical maintenance procedures. Your garlic bed must be kept perfectly clear of weeds throughout the entire growing season. To make your life easier, consider using mulch. A layer of grass clippings, straw, or well-aged sawdust, about 2 to 3 inches thick, will not only suppress weed growth but also conserve soil moisture and help improve the overall soil structure. This 15th mistake only applies to hardneck winter garlic, but it is incredibly detrimental. It's the late removal of the garlic scapes. Around mid-June, hardneck garlic sends up a flower stalk, or a scape, at the end of which aerial cloves, called bulbils, will ripen. From nature's perspective, this is how the plant reproduces. But from a gardener's perspective, this is a direct thief stealing your potential harvest. The plant dedicates a huge amount of nutrients, to forming this scape and developing those seeds. Everything that should be going into the underground bulb gets diverted straight up. Studies show that if you fail to remove the scape, your garlic bulbs will be 25 to 30% smaller. You need to snap off or cut these scapes as soon as they appear, while they are still young, tender, and tightly coiled in a loop. Don't wait until they straighten out. The sooner you do this, the more energy and nutrition the bulb gets. By the way, young scapes are delicious. You can sauté or pickle them, so removing them is actually an extra bonus harvest. Mistake number 16. Ignoring plant diseases. Even if you follow all the best practices, your garlic isn't immune to illness, particularly during rainy or wet summers. The most common culprits are rust, downy mildew, and fusarium. Rust appears as small orange pustules on the leaves. Downy mildew presents as a greyish, powdery film. Fusarium, on the other hand, attacks the basal plate and the roots. Any disease creates immense stress for the plant. Affected leaves stop photosynthesizing efficiently, weakening the plant and halting the flow of essential nutrients to the forming bulb. As a result, the garlic heads end up small, or, in the case of fusarium infection, they simply rot in the ground. It's crucial not to wait until the disease overtakes the entire garden bed. You need to act immediately at the very first symptoms. Conduct regular, thorough inspections. When symptoms first appear, immediately remove the affected leaves. You can try home remedies such as spraying with an ash infusion, or turn to biological fungicides like phytosporin. In advanced or widespread cases, you may need to resort to chemical treatments. However, these must be applied strictly according to the manufacturer's instructions and well in advance of the anticipated harvest date. The 17th mistake is overlooking potential pests. Garlic doesn't have many enemies, but the ones it does have can cause serious damage. The biggest threat is the onion fly. Its larvae burrow into the bulb, hollowing it out from the inside. This causes the plant to turn yellow and eventually wilt. Another dangerous pest is the stem and bulb nematode. This is a microscopic worm that attacks every part of the plant. The resulting bulbs become soft and crumbly, the basal plate cracks, and the garlic won't store well. To fight the onion fly, prevention is critical. Avoid using fresh manure and always practice good crop rotation. You can also try sprinkling tobacco dust or wood ash on the beds to help repel the flies. Nematodes can be managed by watering with a salt solution, 1 tablespoon per 10 litres of water, early in the growing season. Planting marigolds near the garlic is also effective, as they naturally repel this specific pest. Regularly inspecting your plants will help you catch these issues early and take swift action before pests destroy a significant portion of your harvest. A healthy plant will always produce a larger, superior bulb. Mistake number 18 is improper soil cultivation. Every time you water or after a heavy rain, a hard crust forms on the soil surface. This crust cuts off oxygen flow to the roots, and those roots desperately need oxygen for respiration and nutrient uptake. If you don't break up the soil, the roots essentially suffocate, which seriously stunts the plant's growth. That's why you need to regularly cultivate the soil in your garlic bed, ideally the day after you water. But here's an important caveat. Garlic has a very shallow root system. If you till or cultivate too deeply, you can easily damage those roots. Every time you injure a root, it puts the plant under stress and creates an open doorway for disease and infection. So when cultivating, you must be extremely gentle and shallow, only about 1 inch deep. The perfect tool for this is a small hand cultivator or a wire weeder. Or better yet, as we've mentioned before, just mulch the bed. A layer of mulch stops that crust from forming in the first place, completely eliminating the need for cultivating. This saves you time and protects your garlic roots effortlessly. The 19th mistake might sound familiar, but it truly deserves its own focus. Daytime shading. We've already discussed choosing a sunny location, but sometimes shade pops up where you least expect it. For instance, it could come from tall, overgrown neighbours like corn, sunflowers, or even trellised tomatoes. Or perhaps it comes from aggressive weeds that you simply neglected to pull. Even just partial shading for a few hours a day, especially during the crucial morning or midday period, significantly reduces the intensity of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the essential process by which the plant produces its food. Less light means less food. Less food means less energy available to grow a substantial bulb. That's why, when planning your garden, you must factor in the height and overall growth habit of nearby crops. Never plant garlic directly next to anything that could potentially outgrow it and steal its sunlight. Always keep your beds clean and clear. Every single ray of sunlight that hits a garlic leaf is an investment in your future big harvest. And finally, the 20th mistake, and one that can undo all your hard work, is harvesting too early. Many gardeners, especially beginners, rush to pull their garlic the minute the bottom leaves start turning yellow. They assume it's ripe, but that's a mistake. The most crucial time is the final 2 or 3 weeks before full maturity. This is when the magic happens. Intense nutrient flow shifts from the leaves and stem directly into the bulb. During this window, the garlic head actively gains mass and density. If you harvest prematurely, you are robbing yourself of a significant portion of your crop. The heads will not only be small and underdeveloped, but they will also be soft, and they won't store well at all. So, how do you know when it's truly ready? For hardneck or winter garlic, the main signs are the lower leaves yellowing and lodging, or falling over, and the wrapper on your control scape starting to crack open if you wisely left a couple as indicators. For softneck or spring garlic, wait for the majority of the foliage to lie down and dry out completely. Don't rush it. Give nature time to finish its work. So, there you have it. We've covered the 20 primary reasons why your garlic might be staying small. As you can see, the devil is truly in the details. Who would have thought that failing to snap off the garlic scape on time could steal up to 1/3 of your potential yield? Or that planting in the same old spot would doom your crop to disease? Or that an excess of nitrogen late in the season, like in July, would result in gorgeous tops but tiny bulbs? The main takeaway here is clear. Growing large, beautiful garlic isn't magic. It's a systematic approach. It involves paying close attention to seed quality, proper soil preparation, adhering to timelines, smart maintenance, and timely harvesting. Each of these 20 areas is a crucial building block, one that you either lay into the foundation of your success or inadvertently trip over. Hopefully this video will help you sidestep these common pitfalls in the future. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. If you found this investigation helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more gardening secrets. Now for a question for you. Which of these mistakes was the most surprising? Or maybe you have your own 21st secret for growing giant garlic. Make sure to write about it in the comments below. Let's share the knowledge. Until next time, happy gardening.